On September 26, 1780 at noon, imagine this, a 1,200-man army. British forces start marching into town, 8 men abreast, coming up South Tryon Street. In advance of that column, you have one of the most prestigious fighting units in the British Army, known as the British Legion, who had a fierce reputation for cutting down armies. So you have a 1,200-man professional army, and then the rest of Cornwallis's army, which included militia and camp followers. So a total of 2,000 people, British invaders coming into Charlotte, versus a 250 to 350-man militia, Whig patriots guarding the courthouse at Trade and Tryon. Now imagine what it must have been like on that day. These two opposing forces. The Whigs at the courthouse are the ones that are defending Charlotte. As soon as the British Legion begins their advance, 300 yards, they begin their charge.
So it's the Battle of Charlotte, and we're learning about American Revolution history that took place right here in Mecklenburg County.
So we were trying to just educate and bring history to life for the community.
We strive for people to take home the knowledge of how this country was made and what people had to go through in order to make that happen.
I think the Battle of Charlotte, a Living History Weekend, benefits the community by giving people a chance to see some skills from past times. They get to see people demonstrating how things were done and how work was done during the Revolutionary War time period.
We're depicting basically the Battle of Charlotte, which occurred in September 1780. Just time frame. The British invaded Charlestown in May of 1780. And by May, they had come up basically to encroach on Charlotte, unimpeded basically.
And then the term Hornet's Nest, part of it came from when they came through Charlottetown, the colonials and the militia were taking pot shots at them behind buildings and stuff. So like stinging them like hornets.
Oh, okay. See.
And then there was another battle farther up, I can't remember what town it was in, but they actually ran into either a beehive got kicked over.
Are y'all from the Charlotte area?
No, we're from Iowa. Local history is really who we are. Each area has its own personality based on what happened. The town of Charlotte has been around since the early 1770s, and it's grown now, but originally it was a courthouse and 12 taverns.
It's such a great event to bring everyone together. We're all Americans, very patriotic, and just a really good opportunity to immerse your family in the culture that was long ago.
So this guy right here is what's known as a French Charleville. Okay, this is a 1767 model, and this was supplied to us by the French. The French were very upset with the British, and they had just lost the 7 Years' War, and so they were seeking revenge against the British. And so they were supplying the Americans who were fighting the British with weapons and clothes and ammunition and black powder, which was very important. So this was a French gun right here called a Charleville, and this was different than the guns that the British were using. The British were using a brown Bess. And you can tell the difference real easy from a distance by looking. This one has these bands right here to hold the barrel, and the Brown Bess does not have any bands here. Okay, so this gun, you want to see how to load this thing? Okay, we won't fire it, but this little thing right here, you pop this little guy up.
And you put gunpowder.
Yes, you put gunpowder. That's known as the pan. Okay, so this is the frizzen. So you put a little gunpowder in there, and you see that little tiny hole right there?
It's supposed to go inside.
Right, so you put a little black powder because you've got these little bullets that have black powder. And we take one of these and we bite it off. We pour a little of the powder right down in there. You shut that. Then you bring it around here and you dump the rest of the black powder down in here. And then what soldiers back then would do, put this back in here, is they would take their ramrod out Oh, and they would
Stuff it down.
shove it down. Exactly. They would put it down there, bring it back out, and
Put it
have
back
the-
in because it's important that you do not lose it.
How do you know so much?
Because somebody already talked about it.
They did?
Yeah.
Well, you should have just told me.
That's okay.
Yeah. And then this little guy right here, this
You're
little
supposed to
twin.
scoop it and make it spark.
Right. Did you see how it sparks?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, so there you go. So you can see the little sparks.
Never.
And that little spark
Did you see it that
ignites.
time? No, you still didn't see it.
All right, look.
You missed it.
Look real close.
Yeah,
You
look
can
where-
see.
See where?
We put it in the shade.
Did you see it?
See the little sparks?
You keep blinking. I know
Yeah.
because when it hits.
So those little sparks will ignite that black powder in there. They go.
And then it will. Well, first the gunpowder back there, and then it will unite the gunpowder up there.
In the
and
barrel?
Then it will unite the bullet to make it shoot.
Exactly.
The Battle of Charlotte is significant in the fact that Cornwallis was not expecting the kind of resistance that he received from the local Whig or Patriot forces here in this area of North Carolina, and it actually gives our city its nickname as far as being a damned hornet's nest of rebellion, and that's where we get the Charlotte Hornets, our local basketball team's name from.
This is a world war. Spain was involved, France was involved, even the Dutch were involved. They were doing the smuggling for them. Not the French. Spanish were trying to keep the British out of Louisiana, Florida, the area. They didn't do a great job, but they tried. Heck, Spanish got all the way up to South Carolina.
So events like the Battle of Charlotte, they're important because they showcase parts of the Revolution many people haven't heard of. The Battle of Charlotte, it's a smaller battle, but it's still an important battle because it's the first push into North Carolina by the British. These events help fill in the gaps of the story. Everyone's heard of the bigger battles up north, but very few have heard of the battles down here, and it helps tell their story and preserve the history of them for the future, whether it's an event like this one or an event at an actual historic site or battlefield that helps promote the preservation of those sites and the preservation of those stories.
1780 was a very dramatic year.
The first thing that they're going to see when they get out of their car in the parking lot, they're going to look over and they're going to see these white canvas tents. They might see some flags that are flying, and they might even hear some camp sounds that are going on. They might hear some clanging of the pots. You might hear some laughter in the background, and then there's the smell of the smoke. It's a multi-sensory type of experience when they come in. They'll see people that are dressed in vibrant clothes that you just don't see dressed today. It'll be almost like walking on a Hollywood movie set for The Patriot or Turn or some of those other period dramas of the 18th century. Only what we do here is we try to interpret the story so it's much more real and so that they can experience what the common life would have been like.
The value for the community is the educational opportunities. It's without festivals like this, you do not have the in-person, face-to-face educational principle which gives context rather than just reading it and setting it down with no imagery. This actually gives imagery.
The Battle of Charlotte Festival is something you can come experience at historic Roll Hill, and you can take a step back in time and see how we lived in the 18th century, see what we cooked, how the battles were, experience the Battle of Charlotte and the Battle of the Bees. It's a 2-day event, so you gotta make sure you come out both days.
Hey, ready? Take Gary. Fire.
It's going to start the morning. But if they're disciplined, they know if I'm going to stand up straight and I'm going to come together. Because if I'm one-on-one, I got a chance of living. But if I get not experienced, if I'm not experienced, who wants to be the unexperienced side? Raise their hand. Oh, okay. All right.
The youngest one, of course.
Say you get not experienced. And they're getting artillery hits and they're losing people and a couple of musket balls hitting people and stuff like that, and they're shiny, flashy looking, and they're not. Okay, what'll happen is instead of being like this line might be like this. You know, just go down a little bit. See, at this point, you know, they're all staggered. Right. Now y'all are getting, at this point, y'all are like, in your minds, you're like, we're happy. So we're gonna get tighter and tighter together because we got them. Because when you come together right now, is it one-on-one anymore? Mm-hmm. No, it's 2-on-1 or 3-on-1. Yeah. And see, and they're trained. All he has to do is touch the end of his musket. Bayonet. That's his only target. You don't have to fight him. Just there's the bayonet, tack. Because that to hesitate him just enough for those two to go wham. Mm-hmm. And that's it. Bam, done. And theoretically, if they didn't turn around and run, and you had an army like that and an army like that, you could annihilate that entire army with little to no casualties whatsoever. Wow.
Charlotte, when you come in and walk through here, hopefully what you'll find is a diverse array of 18th century life. When a battle happened in the 18th century during the American War for Independence, it wasn't just soldiers, so there's an encampment here, which means you'll be walking through a bunch of tents of an army camped out for a certain amount of time. But hopefully you'll also find representations of civilian life and how that supported the army, like a sutlery here that was selling to supplement the soldiers' rations. You will also find other 18th century lifeways. You got to remember that the soldiers who were fighting on the continental side, in large part, were not professional soldiers. They all had other lives and other professions before they turned to soldiery. So hopefully even as you see demonstrated other lifeways, you'll understand that those were the skills that men were carrying with them as they became soldiers and went into battle. And then you'll also see the British side, the British encampment, which isn't just a bunch of people from Great Britain, from England. There were loyalists here in this country, American-born, who were loyal to King George and loyal to the crown. And hopefully you'll get an understanding of why some people chose to stay loyal to the government that was already in place. So lots of diversity, lots of different opportunities to learn. And if you weren't sure where to start, just ask somebody. We are all happy to talk to you. I am a petty sutler for the Continental Army, licensed by Quartermaster General Timothy Pickering to sell provisions to the troops.
Hi, I'm a weaver.
I work with medicinal herbs and other medical things of the 18th century.
I'm a surgeon herbalist. If I can't cure what's wrong with you, I remove it. And usually I'm trying to teach what surgery was like in the 18th century, both the herbalistic side and the surgical side. Also, we talk about that this would be considered a large library for a traveling surgeon, and I would work on people as they come up from the battlefield. I'd triage them to figure out which ones would be treated first, and then I'd go on to the ones that be treated last.
You get to learn how people lived a long time ago.
It was fun. Very good reenactment of the Battle of Charlotte, which we didn't know anything about beforehand, but now we have a good visual of what it's all about.
The girls learned a lot. I mean, it was the first experience with like seeing a real battle and understanding the two sides, and they did ask if America won a point in that one.
Well, for people who are new to Charlotte especially, and even for people that were born and raised here in Charlotte but don't know its colonial history, this gives them a unique opportunity, really, truly a unique opportunity that's not done anywhere else in Charlotte itself, to learn about its colonial past and to learn about its Revolutionary War history in a way that is fun and engaging for the entire family, so that they can come out and experience something out in the beautiful open air, and by learning and talking to others and seeing what type of activities that they never would have done in a museum per se. It's something that is unique.
At the Battle of Charlotte, you can expect to find a combination of the reenactment itself, but especially a community of volunteers and people who are just absolute lovers of history, who will hopefully bring that history alive. They will show you different tasks and things that were done. They will show you how things were made. They will show you how day-to-day life went for both the soldiers and for many of the people back home. But it's just a good way to take what you may have read in a book as a child and bring it to life and bring it in front of the actual person itself.
One of the fun things about experiencing history firsthand is how many times have you seen an 18th century field artillery piece fire in person? Lots of smoke, lots of fire, a loud sound. How often have you seen people dressed in bright uniforms marching against each other, screaming "God save the King" or "for liberty," or things that, again, in our times, we simply don't experience. Most of our entertainment is spent in front of a television set or, not doing anything dynamic. And so being able to see and smell and taste what it was like to live 250 years ago really will leave you with a sense that we live a very blessed existence, but it's also fun to take a vacation back in time on ships, right? In order to haul a gun out of a gun port, you would have ropes that would go through the ring on the cascabel, but we didn't have many foundries here in the colonies that could make cannon for us. So in our impression, what we tell people is this was a capture from an American privateer, captured a British warship, and we mounted a ship's cannon on a field carriage.
I feel that the other attendants will take home this history, and if they don't treasure it, they will leave, either they will learn from it.
We want this event to be more engaging, and we want it to grow for the greater community over the duration of time. We're here to stay so that we can continue to engage with those audiences and new audiences that come to the event. Our goal, our end result, the so what of what we do is to educate.
One of the things that makes living history events important is it takes history from dusty old names and dates in books that nobody checks out from the library anymore, and it gives them a face, it gives them a voice. At events like these, you can see the 18th century, you can smell the 18th century, you can taste the 18th century. So it gives people an opportunity to really experience history on a very personal level and get an idea of just the kind of challenges that our ancestors not only fought for, or the principles that they fought for, but the challenges they would face in everyday life.
would want to have a good supply because they would use it for so many things.
With this example, and you can polish the buttons now without getting the polishing material on the cloth.
They're missing out on the fun and the just the whole walking through the time and seeing how things work during the battle.
One of the things that's really important about history is it informs us who we are. If we don't know our history, then we don't know who we are today, and if we don't know who we are today, it's very hard as a people to make decisions on who we're going to be tomorrow. So one of the key things about events like this, as opposed to, say, a street party or a neighborhood festival, is this connects us with our roots. It tells us the people that we came from so that we know who we are today, and then we can move forward into the people that will be tomorrow.
Audience participation at the Battle of Charlotte is very, very important. Yes, the reenactors is what helps to bring the magic, but the magic is the spectators themselves, because for us as living historians and reenactors, seeing the joy, the smiles, the laughter, the concentration of what's happening means that we are making an impact of some type, whether it's learning or educating, something that's going to make an impact on their lives. So it's like a symbiotic type of relationship. We bring the energy because the spectators bring the interest and the energy. And that's how it works. They're here to learn something. We're here to share something. And that is the expectations that we have of ourselves. And the more people that we have here to experience that, the better. Because it engages people to talk and to learn more and to, in some cases, establish new friendships or even want to get involved in this crazy hobby that we do, because it is fun. The first time that I went to a historical reenactment, I was hooked. I saw it played out on the battlefield. It's like, I do living history, but I've never done that. And that is something I need to lock into and get engaged with. And we've seen it happen here with different reenactments, not just here at the Battle of Charlotte, but other reenactments where people ask, so how do I get involved in this? Who do I talk to? What would I need to do in order to purchase the clothing so that I could, learn more about this? Or, what is your name? I'd like for you to come to my classroom. And then you hear questions like, how come they don't teach this in the classroom? I've never heard of the Battle of Charlotte. So that's how we are serving our greater community by doing that, providing them with education for things that they've never heard about. And at the same time, they are getting that information back and sharing that knowledge with others.
I like history.
I love history. I like it so much that I can't even explain.
Take, ready. Take, aim. Fire.